Some people say that fat makes you more fat. Some people say that eating more carbs makes you fat. So let's dive a little deeper. The first thing I need to say is not one food group or macronutrients or just one food will make you fat. It's about how many calories you eat. If you are gaining body fat or you're in a position where you are overweight or obese, it's because you ate too many calories. It's very simple. For example, I could take one person who could eat 3,000-4,000 calories worth of fruit in a day. Healthy fruit, pineapples, apples, whatever fruit you want to talk about, any fruit, so healthy foods. And I could take the second person and I could have them eat just 3 donuts all day. Nothing else, just 3 donuts. The second person will actually lose body fat. The first person who's eating healthy foods is going to gain body fat because of the amount of food that they ate. Let me just quickly explain how energy works in the body. So basically think of it like a car and fuel. So your body is the car, we need fuel. We need that fuel to function throughout the day to do our daily tasks. So we eat food, our body breaks that food down into glucose, our body pushes that glucose into the muscles, into the liver, and we use it for energy as well. That's what fuels our body. That's the petrol or diesel that goes in your car. That's our fuel for the body. And then the leftover is how you gain weight. That's why if you eat too many calories, you gain more body fat, because we use the calories, the glucose, the energy that we want to fuel us throughout the day. And then the rest of it gets stored in the muscles, stored in the liver, and when there's nowhere else to go, that's when you start gaining body fat. Having all that said, there are some things we need to consider when eating carbohydrates and be more strategic about whether we eat carbohydrates or the type of carbohydrates that we choose to eat. Most people will agree that proteins taste good, fats taste good, but carbs taste the best. And the problem is they don't fill you up. Once you eat carbohydrates, you want to eat more carbohydrates. The same is not true with protein, for instance. I challenge any of you to eat too much protein. It's very hard to do. If you eat eggs and chicken and steak, it's very hard to overeat on those foods. Now, of course, it's possible, but protein is a very satiating food. If I ate 1,000 calories worth of steak, I wouldn't be hungry for a good few hours. If I ate 1,000 calories worth of sugar and carbohydrates, within 1 hour, I'm going to be hungry again. So we know that they react differently in the body. Of course, if we don't feel full from the carbs that we eat, we're going to want to eat more because we're not full, we're not satisfied. This is something I actually recommend to people that struggle to gain weight. When someone's really skinny and they're trying to gain muscle and size, a lot of the time they eat a high protein diet because of course we need protein to build muscle. But what I actually recommend people do if you're trying to gain weight and you're struggling is just lower the protein a little bit, lower the fat a little bit, and then significantly increase the carbs, and you'll notice you'll start to gain weight very quickly because carbs are easy to eat. So that brings us to the question, should you eat carbohydrates? I choose to, and you should if you want to. It's not about whether you should or shouldn't eat carbohydrates, it's about the type of carbohydrates you eat and being aware of how they work in the body. So for instance, I recommend you eat complex carbohydrates. Sweet potatoes, oats, pasta, they tend to be my type of carbohydrates that I eat a lot. I do eat some fruit as well, but what you want to avoid is the simple carbohydrates. The donuts, chocolate, sugar, that's the carbohydrates you need to avoid. It's very easy to eat a few thousand calories worth of those foods in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It really isn't difficult to eat a lot of sugar. Another huge challenge with eating carbohydrates you need to consider is the glycemic index. The glycemic index is basically just how much a carbohydrate affects your blood sugar. So for instance, oats are around somewhere in the middle, so they have a smaller insulin spike. Let's say you ate a donut, for instance, we'll use that in this example. That's got a lot of sugar, it's going to spike your insulin very high. Now insulin is an anabolic hormone, which is kind of a good thing. It means it builds and it grows. So if you want to build more muscle, it's actually going to help you by having higher insulin. The problem is it grows anything in its path, which includes your fat cells. That's why the more you keep spiking insulin, the more fat you will gain. I'm sure most of you have experienced this, and I certainly have. You eat sugar, carbohydrates, chocolate, and you feel really good for around an hour, and then all of a sudden you crash. That's that insulin spike. You spike the blood sugar really high, but then it has to come back down again. And when it comes crashing back down, you literally have a crash. You feel tired, sluggish, you don't feel well. So what do? You have to eat more and you feel good again. And then you come down and then you eat, and it's that vicious cycle. It's almost like a drug addiction. I mean, sugar is a drug, and that is why these big companies are literally brainwashing and tricking you into eating their products, because they know the information that I'm sharing with you here. When you eat those sugars, you're coming back down again, which is going to force you to eat eat more of it, and it really is a vicious cycle, and it is an addiction and something that you need to consider. I do have a video on how to quit sugar addiction if that's something you're interested in, but the video I actually want you guys to watch next, and you can watch both if you like, is how to lose belly fat. I've put that video on the screen right now. You can click through and watch that now.